Badgers basketball could look a lot different tomorrow. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Appreciate you being here. Wanted to do just a quick kind of midday show because a couple big things are in the works today. The first is John Blackwell has to decide if he's going to withdraw from the NBA draft by tonight, right? Otherwise, he's going to lose college eligibility. So we're waiting on that one, which needless to say is a major domino for the Badgers basketball team. And then Nyzier Fourqurean had his trial today. His NCAA eligibility decision is coming pretty quickly. We're going to talk about both of these things, where I think both are headed. The backup plans, if either of them or both of them don't go Wisconsin's way, these are two really big pieces for the Badgers team. Let's start with Blackwell. Let's start with John Blackwell, who has until 11:59 tonight to essentially pull his name out of the draft consideration to retain college eligibility. Now, there's still an opportunity for him to withdraw at a later date, but then he would lose college eligibility. So as for the Badgers and for Wisconsin fans, tonight is a deadline. And we've seen a lot of players well before this point kind of pull out of the combine. And it's led some people to get a little worried. Is there a team in the second round that's talking to John Blackwell and trying to say, hey, maybe if you stay in, we'll pick you in the second round. Maybe there's some type of second round guaranteed deal. What has caused the delay? Why is he not pulled out of the draft consideration yet? Ultimately, I think Blackwell's back. I think John Blackwell's back. I think that's where this is going to go based on a couple things. I think he can improve his draft stock next year. A year playing with Nick Boyd, where he can just be that two guard. He can go get buckets. He can really fill that role. I think he comes back to do that and improve the draft stock. There's really no harm in waiting until the last day to pull out of draft consideration. You might as well get all the potential feedback. There's no reason to have to come out early and get out of that draft consideration. I think there's spots where his game can grow and where he can really maximize his NBA draft potential, which is the shooting consistencies, a little bit more scoring, maybe a little more defensive consistency. And the NIL makes this easier, right? Because he can stay in Wisconsin, make have a good, strong NIL package and not have to chase dollars, where a lot of prospects in the past, NFL, NBA, they would leave early because they wanted to get paid. You can still do that in college now, improve your craft. Blackwell's a guy who didn't make that NBA combine. He hasn't been on really any mock drafts that I've seen. There's been no really smoke that we've seen leaked. And that's the other reason I think ultimately he's back. It's stressing people out that it's taking to the last day. I've had a couple people already text me like, dude, what's Blackwell doing? And I'm like, man, I don't know. Truthfully, I don't. But I feel like if we thought he was leaving, we would have seen some smoke in NBA draft channels. We would have seen some smoke from some UW sources. We probably would have seen Wisconsin start to kick the tires pretty aggressively on what the backup plan might be. Another international prospect or, some other player that had committed in the portal to another school where Wisconsin gets in and tries to flip them. So ultimately, I think Blackwell's back, which is phenomenal because he's going to be the dude next year. Blackwell's going to be the engine of this team next year. And hey, Mitch is in the chat. What's up, Mitch? And if they don't get him back, I don't think you find a 1-for-1 replacement. We talked about worst case scenario at the lead into the show. What happens if we're going to talk Nyzier Fourqurean in a second? What happens if Blackwell does stay in the draft? If he does have a deal or something in place with the team in the second round, he's going to test those waters. What is Wisconsin's fallback? There's not a great one, I don't think. Now, coaches are paid to have fallback plans. They'll have tabs on a lot of players. Maybe you go and you're just not going to replace Blackwell 1-for-1 in the portal. So that's coming up today, probably sometime this evening. I'm guessing that doesn't go till 11:59 tonight. At some point this evening, we'll probably get the final word on that, whether Blackwell's back or not. I think he is. Again, I think Blackwell's coming back. That's my read on the situation. I think that he has a lot to gain. He can come back, refine the scoring, become the leader really of this team, become the starting two guard, be that scoring option with Boyd helping him to kind of, improve his efficiency a little bit. I think he can get better defensively, better from a playmaking standpoint. And that's all the feedback he would have gotten with the NBA scouts and the NBA teams through this process. So he'll come back, with kind of a list of things he needs to get better on, work on, put another year into it, and we could see an incredibly strong Blackwell junior season next year, which I anticipate. I think he's going to be a dude next year. And then it's back to the draft for him. That I think it might be the last year for Blackwell. I think you take this year here, implement what the NBA is telling you to do. You come back, you show out, and then you leave. And that would be win-win because Blackwell's a great guy. Blackwell is a culture player, really good teammate. No matter what, I think the last thing I'll say on the John Blackwell thing, no matter what, I'm rooting for him. No matter what, I'm rooting for him. But it would be fun to root for him with another year in Madison, right? And that would be obviously beneficial to the team. I think it could be beneficial for him as well. Jan says Blackwell waiting this long doesn't bode well for the Badgers. Yeah, I think if you're worried about this, yeah, it's the length of it. Like, why is it taking so long? And maybe there's something internationally. You can go play internationally. But here's my thing. I don't think playing internationally, now that you can get NIL in college, is that much better than just staying in Madison. Like, if I had to choose between going to play in Europe and this is just me, like everybody's different, but I have to choose between going to play in Europe or some foreign league or Spain or wherever, I just stay in Madison, get the NIL. You can definitely improve your game and your stock in Madison just like you can internationally. So I think he's going to come back. That's my gut on it. That's my feel on it. But until it happens, until you get final word, I think Badger fans are going to be rightfully a little nervous about it. So anyway, that's the latest there. We're going to know by today. Whether Blackwell's back or not. L Mills says, this was my concern with JB. Does his game project more to the NBA or could he play internationally? I think he could be an NBA guy. But there's consistency questions. The shooting took a dip this year. I think there's defensive questions. He probably needs to become a little bit better playmaker. The assist to turnover ratio wasn't great this year. But again, I think some of that was because this team didn't have a traditional point guard. Blackwell's still a young guy. I thought he was pushed into a bigger role than I think his game is suited to be a scorer, a slasher, your primary bucket getter. And I think he can do that at the college level. I think he's going to be better next year because you have Boyd, because he's a year older. So I'm really excited if we get the junior version of Blackwell that I think we're going to get, especially you look at his jump from his freshman to his sophomore year. I think we're going to be really happy with John Blackwell as a junior if he's able to come back to Madison. But we're going to know by today. Coming up next, we have to talk about another player, a decision looming on Nyzier Fourqurean, a major piece in the Badger secondary. What happens if he can't come back? Talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel is awesome. We talk about it all the time. Longtime partners of the Locked On Podcast Network because FanDuel has every type of bet that you could want, right? Parlays, futures, spreads, teasers. It's all over there in the easiest to use interface you're ever going to find. And the NBA playoffs are going on right now. And if you want to spice it up even more, jump over on FanDuel. Get in on the action. Live in-game betting keeps the games exciting no matter what the score is. The NBA playoffs have been incredible, and FanDuel just makes it even more exciting. Plus, Major League Baseball is going on. I love betting on baseball. Every day the starting pitchers change, which just makes it dynamic and fun and interesting. Plus, with FanDuel, I talk about this all the time, but I talk about it because it matters. We talk about the things that matter. It's easy to get the payouts when you win on FanDuel. They make it simple. It's hassle-free. They don't make you go through a bunch of third country type stuff that we've seen on other platforms. Now, FanDuel's simple. That's why it's great. It's simple. It's easy. It's fast. Spice up your weekend with FanDuel. It's a great time to sign up if you're new to FanDuel. Right now, new customers head over to FanDuel.com. Place a $5 bet. If you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's jump in and finish this off. Again, kind of a short show today, but a couple really interesting things happening. Nyzier Fourqurean. So I feel like we've all been operating under the assumption that he was just going to come back, right? We know that this was up in the court still, that it was still being decided, but because the NCAA has been so toothless and so inconsistent in their rulings and in their logic and in the ways they've chosen to try to interpret or enforce certain rules one way and then not another way on some schools, but maybe not on another school. We've always kind of, I think internally as Badger fans felt like, yeah, Nyzier's coming back. The NCAA has lost every time they've gone to court. This thing is swung in the players' movement, direction. And an official decision hasn't happened. and I am not a lawyer. I don't even pretend to play a lawyer on TV, but following along with the court today, the court case today with Nyzier, I don't think it went well for him or the Badgers. And that's the interpretation I've gotten from a couple other people as well, is it feels now, after what we've heard, both sides kind of presenting evidence, Nyzier's lawyer and the NCAA's lawyer, it feels like there's a pretty good chance he doesn't come back, that he's not granted that extra year. Two things really quickly. The first is, as a Badger fan, that sucks. That stinks. Nyzier was really good last year. I think people underestimate how good he was last year. I think he was the best corner on the team. And I love Rico. I think Rico's going to bounce back a little bit this year. I think Nyzier was the most consistent, most physical cornerback on the team last year. And I think he was going to be better this year. He took a massive jump from year one in the program, when he was still battling some injuries, to year two, where he looked really good, blowing up every smoke screen, really good tackler, great length, veteran guy. I think he was going to take another step this year. I think he might have been your best cornerback on this team. And it's a cornerback room that we talked about in the offseason, lost a ton of pieces, had depth questions, and our saving grace, we talked about it, was thank goodness Nyzier's back. Thank goodness they kept Rico. Well, you might be losing half of that equation. You might be losing Nyzier. That's my first part, right? I like Nyzier. I've had a chance to talk to him a little bit at practices. Really good guy, high character guy. I'm rooting for him. I like him a lot. The flip side of this is, if this was a cornerback, and this was in a chat that I was in on Twitter, if this was a cornerback at Minnesota, would we be up in arms over it? Or would we say, no, of course, there needs to be some rules on eligibility? The crux of Nyzier's case comes down to, he was at a Division II, and then he lost some time to personal hardship, where he probably should have had a redshirt year, but didn't get one. Ultimately, he's probably out of eligibility. And if this was a cornerback at another college, I think most Badger fans would kind of say, yeah, there needs to be some limits, right? There needs to be some rules in place. And here's what I'd say: as long as they are consistent, which the NCAA has been anything but consistent, so I don't trust them to do this. As long as they're consistent in how they interpret this, as long as judges and courts are consistent in how they interpret this, I'm kind of okay with it. They just have to be consistent, though. There has to be some rules and limits in college football for eligibility, for restrictions, for player movement. There's just got to be some structure. It does feel like other teams have gotten away with stuff. Other players have gotten exceptions that maybe now Nyzier's not going to get, and that's unfair. But there's got to be something in place. So it's conflicted with me. Like, I would love to have him back in Madison. I also realize, there's got to be some type of limits to how long you can play in college football. And Mitch hits it, though. It always seems like it hits the limits with the Badgers. You go back to Micah Potter, who randomly couldn't play for half a year because the NCAA decided to make a big stand on that. It does feel like, I wonder if this was an Ohio State cornerback or a Georgia cornerback, if the outcome might be different. And I don't know. Michael B says, I think Nyzier not be able to come back is a bigger deal than Blackwell. I would disagree there, Michael, but I hear you. I think Blackwell's the number one on the team next year. I think he's almost irreplaceable right now in the portal with the resources you have and the timeline. I think him not coming back would be a bigger blow to Badgers basketball than Nyzier is to Badgers football. But that's not to diminish. There's no good that comes from not being able to play Nyzier. Like, what does it do to the depth chart? I think Emilio Agard obviously steps into a bigger role. Maybe Hill, the transfer over from Miami, needs to step into a bigger role. You're going to have to count on a couple of those freshmen a little earlier than maybe you wanted to. Maybe a Washington, maybe a Kairos Gaines. There's definitely going to be discussions about that depth chart going forward and who needs to step up. But Nyzier's a big piece to this defense, and there's not a ton of experienced backups behind him. It's not a place that you had bodies you could readily lose. It's a big loss if it happens. Again, nothing has definitively happened either. I definitely want to point that out. The decision is coming. It's supposed to be expedited, so we should know pretty soon. But Nyzier could still be playing. Like, the overall decision has not been made, and I want to be super clear on that. And I am not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. I have no clue. But just following along on Twitter, following along with people that follow this, it feels like it didn't go the way maybe Wisconsin and Nyzier would have wanted in the courtroom. And it's a bummer for him. I feel bad for him. It hurts Wisconsin. I also think big picture, there needs to be some limits and some restrictions because otherwise players are just never going to leave college. And maybe that's the future of it. I don't know. I don't think that's healthy for the sport. I don't think that's ultimately a good thing. So going forward, this would be a blow. But as long as they're consistent, the NCAA, the courts, and they consistently, which they haven't done, and they've given you no reason to believe they will do. But as long as they do that, then okay, I can begrudgingly get behind it. Let's see. Yeah, Jen, if Nyzier was at Ohio State, it'd be different. It feels like it. I'm telling you, like, it does feel like we're an easy school, and this is an easy situation to put the foot down. Coach Max says JB needs to be back another year in the system makes him. Yeah, I agree. Artificial says, have Nyzier put on a fake mustache and change his number. Put 5 green on the jersey. Yeah, let's do it. Let's play him anyway. Let's disguise him up and call him an international player and just run him out there. Absolutely love it. Coach says the future of the NCAA is the NCAA being disbanded. Mega football conferences inbound. It's coming there. It's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC, and I don't see a way around that. I don't know if it's nice to be in the halves, right? Wisconsin sits at one of the 2 cool tables at the cafeteria. You have the SEC with a cool table and Wisconsin and the Big Ten with a cool table, and everyone else is scrambling to find seats on the Titanic. So it's nice that we're one of the halves, but yeah, it's changing, and it has to change because you can't enforce the same rules for a school like Ohio State as you do a school like Tulane. It just doesn't work. Not with athletes getting paid and NIL, and athletes should get paid. I've long said that. I'm in favor of athletes being able to move, in favor of athletes being able to get paid, but there needs to be some common sense things in place as well. There has to be some structure. There has to be some type of contracts, and there has to be some type of eligibility requirements. Otherwise, this sport just isn't this sport anymore. So again, if the NCAA can be consistent with this, I'm okay with it, but it would be a big blow for the Badgers defense this year and the Wisconsin Badgers and for Nyzier, which isn't to be lost on this because he's a great kid. I mean, young man, I say kid, but he's a great young man and definitely going to be rooting for him and Blackwell. No matter what happens, definitely going to be rooting for both of them going forward. We're going to wrap it there. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, just a quick episode to kind of get everybody on the same page with what's going on here on Wisconsin. We will definitely talk to you later. Listen, we got Jake Kokorowski coming up talking official visits. We got the great John McNamara coming up talking official visits. We got Brian Smith coming up to talk official visits and recruiting. Ton of stuff coming up on all those fronts on Wisconsin. Thank you all so much for spending a little bit of time here. Listen, you got a billion things you could listen to. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us on Wisconsin, and we will definitely talk to you later.